Welcome back to Be the Effect, where we explore the little shifts that create big change. And if you don't already know, I'm Lisa, part coach, part curious human, and full-time believer that relationships are some of our best teachers. Today, we're diving into one of the most obvious and sometimes sneaky ways patterns show up in your relationships. Have you ever noticed how the same dynamics pop up again and again? Maybe it's a certain type of friend and you're always the listener of everyone's woes. A partner who works all the time or feels emotionally unavailable. Maybe it's a colleague who takes the credit for your work, or some other way you show up that just keeps repeating. The same misunderstandings, the same push and pull, the same disappointment or joy, or maybe even the same anger and resentment. This is something that I became aware of in my own life and relationships when I noticed I had really bendy boundaries. And it's something I've talked about in episode 19 before. So these are patterns in action, and they're not just about other people, unfortunately. Even though we might think that they are, they're also about us. How we respond, how we attract, and what we might be unconsciously creating or blocking. And I often think of and talk to people I work with about relationships being their mirrors. So they reflect back the energy, the beliefs and habits that we carry. So we can look out to who's around us and see what our habits are within what's being reflected back to us. So some patterns show up clearly, like repeatedly attracting people who overstep your boundaries. I'm a good one for that. Or falling into the same arguments. You may have noticed that you always fall into the same arguments with the same people, because those are those patterns that you have around those beliefs, around those habits, around that energy that we carry. Others might be more subtle, like always putting someone else's needs before your own, or never asking for support when you really need it. And, you know, just like in life, it's not only about what is happening, it's also about what's missing. So what patterns of care, connection, or ease are absent in your relationships that could make them healthier and more fulfilling? So what ways of communicating would be more effective in your relationship? Would it be better for you to be more honest about what is happening for you that's going on with your partner? Would it be better that you speak to somebody else and you're more upfront about what is going on for you so that other people can be more aware? Maybe you always shut down and don't share what's going on in the background, but that doesn't enable others around you to know what is going on for you. So maybe that's a pattern of not trusting that people will hold space for you after you share what's going on. For me, I notice relationship patterns in how I give and receive energy. So sometimes, like, I give too much energy, I get overwhelmed, and then I pull back, which I spoke about in the previous podcast. I then need to hob it out and allow my in and out flow to rebalance, because I'm not balancing it out. My autopilot is to give, to put everybody else first, because that is one of my patterns that keeps everything safe, keeps everybody around me, and stops me feeling like I won't be accepted. So I show up in that giving space, whereas I need to actually most of the time rein it back in so that I'm giving to myself as well and not burning myself out, not becoming overwhelmed, and then not needing to hobbit quite so much for so long. That's not to say hobbiting is not an okay thing. It's just that if we do too much of one thing, we always or often have to balance it out with the opposite. Or at least that is what I find I need to do. You may find that to be similar or not. I also see patterns in the types of conversations I have, the roles I slip into, and even how I anticipate conflict or approval. Some of these patterns were inherited, like the things I picked up from family dynamics growing up. others are my own habits and coping strategies that have evolved over the years to manage the level of hurt I might experience or balancing the anxiety I might get. So whilst they may not have been things that I picked up over the years through my childhood, through my teenhood, from family, they are other strategies and other habits that I've created to support me along the way that have kept me safe over that time. However, now when I look at what those patterns are within my life, they no longer serve me. For a while, they kept me safe and they supported me and they looked after whatever need it was that I was meeting with those habits and strategies. But now they no longer serve me in a positive way. Now they're holding me back. Now they're stopping me from stretching out to evolve into my next level. So when we notice these patterns, we allow the awareness, which I spoke about previously, and awareness creates choice for ourselves. Like I said with the last podcast, I was talking about the light in the room and how you have been tripping around in that. It's because you can suddenly see what is in front of you. You can see those patterns. So when we create that awareness, we become more aware of what the patterns are in our life, so we can have that light shining on it and we can then begin to make conscious decisions around that. And I would be totally amiss if I didn't throw in a smidge of homework for this week. So here it is. Because this is about relationships and the way we relate to others, whether that's people at work, whether it's family, friends, or maybe it's our partner that we have patterns going on with. And most likely, if you're anything like me, you've got patterns going on with everybody. If you do it in one relationship, you're usually doing it in another relationship as well. If you are giving to everybody at home, you're usually the same with your friends, your family, work people. You overgive or overcompensate to ensure that you are in a safe environment because you are needed. That may not be your undertone to your pattern. That is it for me, or it has been for me in the past. So just notice one recurring dynamic in those relationships for you this week. Then notice one pattern that is missing. Maybe it's connection between people. Maybe it's a support pattern that you don't ask for support with those people at work. Maybe you could be doing more of that. Maybe it's playful energy that's missing from your life. What are those things within relationships that are missing? So whilst patterns are everywhere, this week I'm asking you to notice a recurring dynamic that is showing up that maybe you don't want happening, but also one that is missing that you would love to have around. What are you noticing that isn't there? So you can write them down or simply observe them in your awareness. And remember, it's no fixing needed, just noticing. This is your first step towards conscious shifts in your relationship, your chance to be the effect in how you relate and receive in your life. In the next episode, we'll look at patterns in your thoughts, the loops, the stories, and beliefs that keep showing up. For now, stay curious, watch the relationships in your life this week, see what repeats, see what's absent. Both are giving you insight about the patterns in your life. Thanks for listening, beautiful human. I'm Lisa, and this is Be the Effect. Catch you in the next episode.